Hello, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy at Passionate World Talk Radio, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, entertain. The views of the guest may not represent those of the host or the station. Folks, I'm excited today. I'm excited every time I do an interview. This month, April, even though it's almost over, is Autism Month. You're going to want to listen to my guest today. I'm very excited to have Alexis Ducharme, who is Senior Marketing Director of the Bierman Autism Centers. They are located in Arizona, Indiana, Massachusetts, New Jersey, yay for New Jersey, Rhode Island, and North Carolina. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I am looking forward to talking to Alexis. Welcome, Alexis Ducharme, to Chatting with Betsy.
Thanks, Betsy. I'm excited to be here and to talk about all things Bierman and all things autism with you today.
Oh, thank you. Can you tell the audience, in case people don't know, what autism is? And I know there's many variations on the spectrum. It varies.
Yeah, autism is a spectrum, but it's a developmental disorder that can affect individuals in a variety of different ways and can affect the way that they communicate, their social interactions, their thought and behavior. And because autism is not, one definition for everybody, that's why we at Bierman Autism Centers, provide therapy that is unique for each family to help them reach their goals.
I am so glad, it thrills my heart, that there is Bierman Autism Centers. I wish it was around when my son was younger. I'm curious, my own curiosity, so I always ask questions in interviews that I'm curious about. What is the difference between what your center does and an early intervention program? Well, my son was in an early intervention program, but you're going back more than 30 years ago.
Yeah, so we do provide early intervention services. So, we start working with children as young as 18 months up to 9 years. But what makes us different from other organizations is that, we provide center-based care on a one-to-one approach where we work with each family to identify their goals and their needs, and then we work with the kids to engage them in learning and play to allow them to develop, foundational skills such as self-advocacy and communication. And the goal of our program is to have every kid go on to graduate from our program and then to go into, a public school or any other sort of learning environment where they're able to thrive. So we want the children to advance on their own terms, and we just help them along the way.
That is wonderful, and it does. It thrills my heart to no end that there is now a specific place, I'm going to say more specialized than maybe a public school early intervention program. Is your program, do you have occupational therapy and physical therapy, speech?
Great question. So we offer diagnostic services, ABA therapy, speech therapy, and OT. Currently, we don't offer physical therapy, but I wouldn't say that, it won't happen. We're always looking to add additional services, and we oftentimes partner with other organizations, and if a child needs additional support, we can go to their facilities or they can come to ours so that it is, a care continuum and care collaboration along the way. Okay,
I have another question of curiosity because I'm just thinking back to what was offered when my son went when he was 18 months old. Do you have, like Josh had a group, so he was in a group with his early intervention. The children had different needs. They all had different diagnoses. And then he went for individual speech and occupational therapy. Do you do group and individual services?
Yeah, so all of our services are one-to-one. So each child has a behavioral therapist that's with them all the time doing the programming and the interaction. And then, if they need those additional services, they do get that one-on-one support because, again, each child is unique and has different goals. But we do promote peer-to-peer interaction, so there are opportunities for the children to interact with the other kids that are there and to grow in those skills as well. But that's one way that we're different is each child has at least one BT that is for them, and then they're overseen by a BCBA, a clinician. And then our team has, a clinical director who oversees all of the programming as well for each of our children.
And how does a parent or guardian have their child go to your center? Do you need a doctor's referral? Does insurance, I know all insurances are different. Is it paid by insurance? Do you take insurance?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's been exciting throughout the last few years because there's now an insurance mandate. So it's required in all states that insurance does cover it. So we are in network with most major providers, UHC, Aetna, Cigna, et cetera. So it is covered by insurance. And we have a whole team that handles intake and then a billing team as well to work with families to help get them care. We don't want anything to be a barrier, and our team is phenomenal at working with each individual family to see how they can make this work, what their insurance needs to do, and we help them with the paperwork and everything as well. So we never want that to be a barrier, which I think is, pretty exciting because I'm sure, as you know, when somebody is diagnosed or they think that their child might have autism, they don't know where to start or where to look for services. So we want to help them along that journey and not just be a center that their child receives care from, but also, a partner along this journey and helping to give them the resources, whether or not we can provide the care and we're the right fit. But if we're not, we help them to find the direction that will best suit them.
Do you need a doctor's referral? Like from a neurologist or... Okay. Go ahead.
The referrals, it depends on each state. We do need a diagnosis, and in most of our states we can also provide the diagnosis, but the referral does depend upon insurance. So that's part of the reason why we have this team to support and provide those services. That some states need a referral, other states you need a diagnosis. It's all the tricky part about insurance. That doesn't make it easy.
Right. Back in the day, my son is 37. So it was July, let's say 86. And he was 18 months old. Yes, it had to be July 80. Not July, January. Or I might have even it was November of 85 because that's when he had the intake. But back then, Alexis, it was for free. The early intervention was free in the state of New Jersey. I believe that has changed now. But we were very fortunate that it was free at the time, based out of a local hospital through their pediatric therapies that Josh had early intervention. And then he went to the preschool. At that time it was called Preschool Handicap Program, but they have since changed the name. I can't express as a parent, and I get very passionate about this, the help that's available now for children who are autistic and for their parents. As a parent, this is back 30 years ago, or more than 30 years ago, when they blamed the parent even 30, well, no, Josh is 37, so that's 36 years ago, to blame the parents, or blame the child even. You're lazy. Your child's lazy. You're doing everything for them when you know that's not true. And I'm really glad that there are services available, that pediatricians and neurologists are recognizing autism in children now more than they did over 30 years ago. And I hope you're not blaming the parents anymore. Do you hear anything about that, Alexis?
We do. We have what I like to say sometimes trolls who are misinformed or just like to cause chaos and spread false allegations out there about autism or ABA therapy, which is really unfortunate because it puts the care that we provide and others like ours at a disservice. And then also, it's not fair to individuals diagnosed with autism. So it is still something that we hear and we're faced with, and hopefully it changes, which is why I'm really glad that, we're talking this month in Autism Awareness for Autism Acceptance Month, which is a good opportunity to get information out there about autism and autism services and what makes everybody special and unique. And so I'm really glad that we're able to connect, but it is, it's always disheartening to hear that some things still haven't changed and that there is misinformation out there, but it's our goal to change that.
Yes. Do you see an increase in the diagnosis of children with autism as the years have gone by?
Yeah, so I think the amount of people who do have autism hasn't changed, but the amount of diagnosing has increased as more awareness has come out and there's less stigma associated with it. I still think that there's a lot of work to be done around awareness of what it is, and we still hear stories, though, that parents and guardians had to fight for their child's diagnosis, or somebody wasn't diagnosed until, they were 18 or even later on in life, which is unfortunate because there are, services out there that could have helped them along this way in this journey. And oftentimes you hear these stories that they've had a difficult journey, and we want to be able to change that and just be able to have the resources available to them when they need it, and not have it be so difficult.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I could so relate to that. I knew at 6 months old, I had that instinct that there was something not quite right with Joshua. And I just knew he was very sensitive to sound. And I took him to a neurologist. He was behind in his development. We went to an activities place for children, and I could see, he would scream. He didn't enjoy it. He screamed. And I just noticed the difference between him and other children. As a parent, you can't help but compare. You accept your child, yes, as they are, but you see that they are behind. And you seek help. And when you seek help and you're told your child is just lazy or it's your fault, that doesn't go over too well. But my son was not properly diagnosed till he was 13 years old. And I took him to neurologists, top neurologists in New Jersey. And I was told, Josh was hyperactive, Josh is mentally retarded. That's the term they used at the time. And then to come to find out that he was on the autistic spectrum, which made a lot of sense, being how he was when he was younger. He lines things up. He likes routine. He has a great memory. He's like a walking calendar. He can remember events from 20 years ago. It's amazing. But the services weren't available back then like they are now. The knowledge wasn't available back then as it is now. So I want to encourage the audience, if you suspect your child is autistic, please seek help. And if you don't agree with the doctor, it's okay to get a second opinion, even a third, until you get peace of mind. But if you think something is amiss with your child, you need to act on it and be their advocate. It's such as that's where I learned to become an advocate. That was the beginning of my advocacy, one of many. Can a child go to your center and also go to their local school?
Yeah. Well, I just want to take a step back, and I like that you use the word advocate and advocacy, because that's when we talk to a lot of our families, they talk about that advocacy, that they had to be an advocate for their child, but then they also like that we teach their children self-advocacy skills as well, to be able to communicate. But you bring up a good point. If you think something's wrong or not, it is the parent or guardian job to be the advocate, but there's also resources out there to help them be advocates and help direct them along that way. In terms of our services, typically, we are a 40-hour-a-week service, but we do offer some part-time programs as well. We work with each child, again, in the family with their needs. I would say part of the difference with Bierman is, like I mentioned before, our goal is to graduate each child from our program, and so during the transition period, we work with the schools and the districts to help ensure that it is a smooth transition. So we'll attend the IEP meetings. We'll slowly start to integrate into our programming the school environment as well. During COVID, which was obviously an interesting time for some of our kids that were starting to graduate, we would sit with them and, turn on the Zoom school, say for 15 minutes or 30 minutes to help transition them, or we would go with them to the school and provide that care to ensure that there was a transition and that the parents knew that we were there to support them along the journey, and then also worked with the school. So those are other instances where maybe the child isn't with us full-time, but part-time with us and part-time at that school until they make that full transition.
That sounds wonderful. I was going to ask, with COVID, I know COVID, when everything shut down, was very, very difficult for my son. And, they like routine. They like a routine as a comfort to many people who have autism. They like to know their schedule, and everything was taken away. Socialization is very difficult. And I was going to ask, how did the Bierman Center, how did you guys do it during COVID? It had to be challenging, to say the least.
It definitely was, but we have a great team at each of our centers, and so we were able to quickly pivot. Although we are center-based, we did move a lot of the kids to home-based. It depended upon the family's wishes, but then also, our team wishes. We wanted to make sure that everybody felt safe. So for a lot of our kids, they did go home, and so we would send the BT or the BCBA home. But the one part of that, was the peer-to-peer interaction. But we wanted to ensure that they still had that seamless care and that ability to progress. And then we did have other kids who did decide to stay in center, and we had pretty strict COVID protocols throughout. And our team still wears masks and things like that. But we were flexible, and we worked with each family so that we wouldn't have to halt services. But the one area I think, was hard, and nobody across any company in the industry would probably disagree that, when you go from center-based and then home-based, there is that peer-to-peer interaction that does become harder to maintain. But I think we did a great job, and now all of our kids are back in center and thriving.
Oh, that's great. That had to be challenging. I often thought, with school on Zoom for the children who have special needs, their parents, that had to be quite challenging for them to do the schooling over Zoom. I mean, the attention alone would be challenging. I had to ask this, Alexis. Will Bierman Autism Centers be springing up in all 50 states and have more than one center in the state? Because I really would like to see Bierman Autism Centers to just flourish and sprout out in all 50 states and have more centers.
That's so sweet of you to say. So in our existing states, we do have a few centers and some. So Indiana, where we were formed, we have 4 centers. Massachusetts, we have 3. Rhode Island, we have 2 and are opening a 3rd. So we are expanding, in your state, New Jersey, we have 1, but it is our goal to open a 2nd one. And we do have more plans for expansion in additional states. This year, I think we're planning to open or expand at least 3 more centers. So it is exciting, and it's our goal to continue to expand and to reach new kids, and not only, be able to provide care, but also we provide resources as well on the career side. So we've partnered with universities like Salem University to offer a first-of-its-kind behavior technician program, because there aren't that many schools or programs that provide ABA therapy teachings and resources. So we want to be able to make sure that we are able to help individuals grow on the clinical side as well, and then also with the kids too, because it does need to be a holistic program and you're meeting the needs on both sides. So we think that education and opportunity is extremely important here at Bierman.
I'm just, you have no idea how my heart is filled with joy to know that there are centers, Bierman Autism Centers out there for children. This makes me ecstatic. Can you explain, in case someone's wondering, what is ABA therapy?
Yes, so ABA therapy is, excuse me, I have a knot in my throat.
That's okay.
So ABA therapy is different for each organization, but it is called Applied Behavior Analysis. And so it's behavioral therapy that is founded in data and research, where you're providing care to help change behavior with the kids. So we firmly believe in blurring the lines between learning and play, and so our therapy methods are, to get the kids engaged and interactive in things that they are passionate or interested in, but, getting them to make changes in their behavior. So there's things called such as MANs or things like that, and it could be as simple as, having, say, a bunch of stickers or toys out of different farm animals and getting them to identify the right one and respond accordingly. And then you make the task, more difficult as they properly identify the right item of the right animal. And so it doesn't seem like, it's work or therapy to the kids, but there are, we track the data and the progress, and so that is what, ABA therapy is.
Okay, thank you. And how does a parent go about touring one of these centers if they're interested and for their child to attend?
Yeah. So I would say there's different ways. So if you're interested in Bierman, you can reach out on our website. You can call us or email us, and our intake team can schedule a tour, provide more information about us and how we use, naturalistic teaching through play, and get a tour scheduled. There's just, a few questions that we ask to make sure that it's the right fit, but then you can come to our center. In addition, we're actually starting to hold open houses at a lot of our different centers now that the COVID restrictions are changing. So if your listeners are in Rhode Island, we'll be having an open house of our Warren Center soon. We're going to be doing one in our Avon, Indiana Center in May, and we're slowly expanding to our other centers to hold not only open houses where the parents can come and tour, but we'll also be holding sensory-friendly activities as well for the kids so that the parents can meet with our team and to see the centers, but then the kids are engaged as well in different sensory-friendly activities, so it'll be great for the whole family.
That sounds wonderful. Alexis, is there anything else you'd like to say about Bierman Autism Centers?
No, just, that we really want the Bierman experience to be different for every family in the sense that, we want the children to play and to progress while also, building connections, and that each family, whether or not they come to us or they're looking for other autism services, but they should find a program that helps them identify their goals and develop individualized programs, and that's really there to support not only their child but them. So as they're being an advocate or, they're unsure about what to do next, look for organizations that provide parent resources, parent training, parent night out, different resources that create, a community for the parents or the siblings, and even other family members who may interact with the individual diagnosed with autism. So you want it to be a community and help educate everybody. So look for an organization that's going to provide that support, because you want it to be the holistic care. And like you've mentioned, Betsy, the services have changed, and there's so many different options and resources out there. So, look for the one that's going to be the right fit for your family.
Yes, and I will say this to the audience, Alexis, knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. Educate yourself. I tell this to my caregivers about Alzheimer's and dementia. Or educate yourself about autism. Educate yourself of what is offered in your area, because every area is different. Join a support group. And I had to say this, I joined a support group once I knew that Josh was on the spectrum. And I joined a support group, and I found out about private schools. So I gained knowledge. And so when it was time for Josh's IEP, and he was supposed to, he was graduating from what we call middle school down here, and I said, Josh is not going to the high school. I'm not sending him to that high school. It's not for him. And I knew about a school because I attended a support group where I gained knowledge. And I told the child study team and the director of special services, I want Josh to go to this school. This is what is offered here. You don't have this here, and this is where I want him to go. And I'm fortunate they did approve him to go. So you really, have to go. I always say go by your gut instincts. The child study team at the school was not going to tell me about something that cost the township money. I'm going to be very real here. They don't want to tell you about services that's out of their district because it costs a lot of money. But you have, as a parent, guardian, you have to find out what is best for your child and go forward. And that was, I guess, the beginning of my advocacy, because if I didn't fight for Josh, he wouldn't have gotten the services. He wouldn't have received them. So parents, guardians, find out what's going on in your district and your townships, whatever you want to call it. I live in New Jersey, so we say township, district. Find out what support groups are in your area for autism. Maybe your school has a parent-teacher association for children with special needs. Our public school didn't at the time. Now they do. I found out now they do. But, with time things change, and I hope they change for the better. And I want to thank you, Alexis Ducharme, for coming on. I want to thank Bierman Autism Centers for doing all that they're doing to help children and their families. It really touches my heart. And, yes, I do get passionate. I get verklempt when I talk about certain things. Getting choked up now. But that's who I am, and I don't make apologies for it. You don't know what it's like.
You shouldn't.
Thank you, Alexis. As parents, we don't know what it's like for to be in someone else's shoes. If you have a sick child, if you have a child with special needs, don't judge people. Don't make assumptions. Oh, that child is acting out. Their parents aren't disciplining them, or why is that child different? Ask the parent, how can I help you? How about that? How can I help you? And I think the child study teams, I hope they've improved by now to tell the parents about resources, even if it costs township money, of what is best. You have to do what is best for your child, and don't worry about what other people think. When I told my parents I was taking Josh to a neurologist, they gave me such a hard time. You're looking for trouble, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not looking for trouble. I'm looking for help for my son. And if you think something is amiss, I can't say this enough. If I sound redundant, it's because it's so dear to me. I'm going to say it again. If you think something is amiss with your child, even if they are 6 months old, seek different opinions from different doctors if you have to. It's very important. Ask questions and get your answers. And I'm hoping that pediatricians are more on the ball, neurologists more on the ball now, the child study teams are more in the ball in recognizing autism in children. And instead of blaming the parent and blaming the child. And, yes, I got on my soapbox. But thank you so much, Alexis Ducharme. And I really appreciate you coming on. Can you give the website for your center?
Yes, of course. And thank you so much for having me on today. So our website is BiermanAutism.com. You can also search us on Google at Bierman Autism Centers. We have Facebook groups for each of our states as well, and we're on all of the social media resources. And I just want to add too, because you were mentioning, different resources locally. There's also great parent groups on Facebook as well, and other social media sites too, so that if anybody ever needs care or resources locally, look for those social media groups, because it's a great way to connect with others in similar situations, asking different questions, and it could be just a great knowledge resource hub and community so that you're not alone.
And that's important. That's so important. Thank goodness for social media. A lot of it is good, some of it isn't, but you know what? Now with social media, you can connect to people and not be alone. I felt that I was alone for a long time, and because there wasn't Facebook back then, and there wasn't many support groups back then. So I'm glad that you mentioned that there's groups out there, and I just am very grateful that things have changed. in many ways for the better. And I can't thank you enough, Alexis Ducharme, for coming on, sharing about the Bierman Autism Centers. Folks, if you live in any of these states, look them up online. And in the blog, it will have the email, the website address to Bierman Centers. And if you live in those states, I would call up. I would do a tour. I would definitely would have if my son was that they had these over 30 years ago. I definitely would have checked that out. That's for sure. So I want to thank everyone for listening. Please share this podcast. Maybe you know someone who could benefit. Maybe you know someone who has an autistic child. But share this podcast. Tell people about it. Chatting with Betsy is not about me. It's about helping people. It's about helping my audience by providing resources such as Bierman Autism Centers and having people coming on like Alexis to tell you about resources that can help you and help your child. And I want to thank Jeannie White, the station manager at Passion World Talk Radio, for writing the blog, producing the show. I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passion World Talk Radio, for making this all possible. It is free to subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, wherever you hear your favorite podcast. And if you missed any of this podcast, you can hear it all over again on your favorite podcast outlet. But I am on Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeart, just to name a few. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Thanks for sharing. And as I always say, we're in a world where you can be anything. Please be kind. Thanks for listening, everyone. Till we chat again, this is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Bye-bye now.